My name is Garrett Sauls. I'm a content manager at InterWorks, which I always say is I'm a corporate English teacher. I essentially help all the smart people in InterWorks share their knowledge and get to connect with smart people like Michael and Annabelle to share their knowledge out with the community. I'm based in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I have the privilege to be here today. So I'll pitch it over to Annabelle, who will introduce herself.
So a very warm welcome also from my side. My name is Annabelle Rincon, and I'm in Switzerland. So we have like a variety of time zones today. I'm very delighted to be here, obviously, and co-host this webinar series with Garrett. I have 22 years experience, and during that time I have worn many hats, starting as a data analyst, growing to lead Tableau developer, and more recently serving as an enablement lead. And through all this role, one thing that has become very clear to me is that enablement is crucial to the success of an organization. And sadly, it's often the missing piece, the one that can truly make the difference in the implementation of a data analytic platform or digital transformation. And that's what we launched this webinar series with Garrett, to spotlight key enabler and learn from voice driving impact across all the industry. And that's why today it's a great honor to have like Michael. And Michael Sandberg will be speaking about a fascinating and intriguing subject for me, AI hallucination. Michael currently serves as a senior quantitative risk analyst on the USAA data reporting and governance team. I had to read that, otherwise I would have forget to say it correctly. He brings deep experience. He had worked in many renowned companies in business intelligence, such as General Motors, American Express, and Walt Disney Company. And he joined USAA in 2019 as a senior business intelligence analyst. And what fascinating me about Michael is that he never stopped learning and sharing his knowledge. So I know that Michael holds a bachelor's degree in history and computer science, but recently he even completed a postgraduate program in artificial intelligence and machine learning. And that's truly fascinating me, the way that Michael, that you never stop learning. And that's it. A very warm welcome from Michael. Thank you so much for joining. And Michael, now the floor is yours.
Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. My name is Michael, or Mike Sandberg. I prefer Mike. My presentation today is the interesting and unusual life of AI hallucinations. We'll get into what AI hallucinations are in a minute. I do want to thank Annabelle and Garrett for inviting me. We've talked about this probably for several years now, and I welcome this opportunity to present to you, and they both are wonderful people, so that's even a better scenario for me. If you do have any questions, please ask them in the chat. Not only are they going to capture them, but I will, anything that we don't get answered, I will answer and send the answers to them to distribute to all of you. Okay, I need to make this disclaimer. And I had to do the same thing. I spoke at Tableau Conference 2 years ago about centers of excellence. The opinions, ideas, insights, and recommendations expressed in this presentation are solely those of the content creator, me, and not his employer, USAA, its affiliates and employees. Basically, that we have teams that actually are responsible for this, and we don't want to imply that I am inferring to what USAA strategy is. This is just me talking about a very specific topic here. Okay, so one more comment before I begin. The way I learned AI is I am constantly creating action figures. And I want to mention this as a preface, is that we took a trip in our first cruise in March. It was called the Flower Power Cruise. It was a bunch of 60s and 70s bands and all of the people, on the cruise. Made a lot of friends, made friends of some of the people in the band. And after the cruise, we have a Facebook site we all talk on. And I started making action figures of all the bands and stuff. And then all of a sudden, people started asking me. And then I have people at work asking me. So I have a literally a waiting list of about 40 people asking for figures. And it's just a lot of them are just what comes in my head. I'll see something, say, this would be funny. And again, this has helped me become very proficient, particularly at AI prompts, being very specific because of the hallucinations. So I will show you examples of my work, and if there's anything interesting about that, I will tell you a couple little nuggets about it. For example, a lot of you may know the new Superman movie came out, and crypto stole the movie. What I told it to do here is when I was a kid, there was actually a Superman comic strip in the Sunday Funnies. And I said, use vintage Superman comic strips for the background. And it did so here. So I thought this one was kind of cool. This is one of my favorites that I've done. But, sometimes I get caught off guard and I see people or I say, what would be funny is if I did something like this. And this is Garrett with a beard. This is Annabelle, and they're on their Harley, and they're in the countryside. I actually was going to put the Eiffel Tower in the background, but they're in the countryside in Paris. This I actually used the tool called chaton.ai to create. So, and if you look at the bottom, I usually will tell you who my sources are and what tools I use. The reason I do this is something I learned about storytelling, which is a separate topic, is that if people say, well, that's not true, or I don't believe that, I'm saying, fine, just go down here. Here's the link. Go check it out yourself. So with that said, just a little bit about who I am. I've been in this profession over 48 years. Oh my gosh. And we called it everything from computer science, computer engineering, IT, MIS, data and analytics, BI, AI. So it's went through the gamut. As we were talking earlier, all my exes are in Texas, and I'm not talking about wives. I'm talking about schools. I did my undergrad at Texas A&M, my master's at SMU, my postgrad at UT Austin. I've been working in BI and data intelligence for about 25 years now. I did MicroStrategy for about 12 years, did Cognos for 3, and I've been working for Tableau for close to 10 years now, on and off. By on and off, I just moved to a different position at work, and the last year and a half I hadn't used Tableau at all. I live in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm a lifetime Lions fan. The last time they won the championship was the year before I was born. It's a long time ago. And something I'm real proud of, I have lost 65 pounds in the last year. That's about 20% of my body weight. I kind of have a goal of losing about 32 more, and then I think I'll be happy. But if any of you have questions of how I did this, just ping me and I'll be glad to talk to you about it. And this is a figure I made of me. It's like everyone. I'm self-conscious about my personal figure, so this one's better. And I said, put me in front of Niagara Falls on a beautiful sunny day and all that. So that's what it did. What are AI hallucinations? This is pretty scary figure, but it kind of hints at some of the things I'm going to talk about. Okay, so AI sometimes makes mistakes. And as you can see from this figure, this was AI generating multiple faces. It was only supposed to generate one, and in all these instances, it generate like here, she's literally attached to the top of the head of the other image of her here. Same thing here. They just meshed her into this one and over here. So there are things, AI can make mistakes. I don't want to say, and I'll talk more about this, that AI is wrong. AI is broken. You hear people say that, but I'll tell you why in a little bit. So what is an AI hallucination? So as human beings, we have crazy dreams. So you might have a dream where You know, you just picked up some pizzas at the pizza parlor, the box swings open and the pizza starts talking to you. And, you know, you wake up, go, wow, man, that seemed real. I swear that was real. Did that really happen or not? You know, so we don't call those hallucinations. We just either call it we ate something bad or something we saw that day came into our subconscious that night. But you know, when you build a system such as artificial intelligence, and I have typically used OpenAI, ChatGPT. It responds to a serious question with a response that ranges to it being inaccurate to silly. So, in essence, the world of AI, a hallucination is an instance in which an AI tool makes up something that isn't true or doesn't exist. Later on, I show a brief quote by a person from Scotland who summarizes it nicely. Okay, so what is AI? So let's think of this just in simple terms. Think of AI as a super smart robot brain. And during development, people like you and I, we give this brain huge amounts of information called data. So how huge is this data set? Uh, Hypothetically, let's start with all the information on the internet. It could have everything, and I mean everything, every Facebook and Instagram post, every word out of every encyclopedia, every book, every song, and then you can keep going. So basically, every piece of information, whether it's video, it's media, it's text, uh, images, are all on in the data set. So training and thinking, one of the things you'll want to do is train your AI system. And the way you do this is you would, it's very much like normal human intelligence. We organize information, we analyze it, and write a detailed report about the information, organizes and analyzes. In other words, we ask AI a question, it gives us back some kind of prediction. I'm calling it a prediction, not an answer, but a prediction. But unlike a human, AI systems don't think when it did all that work. So, you know, a lot of people, like I said, will disparage AI. It doesn't really think; it just returns. So that's right. It has predicted what the user, based on what the user asked to perform, typically called an AI prompt, wanted based on the way the user worded the question and all of the data the AI system has been trained on and put that information together to meet the prediction. And it does this in a couple of minutes where most of us would have to do some work. Okay, here's a picture again of someone from my cruise. For you folks that are a little older, this is Ron Dante. Ron Dante was the voice of the Archies. 1969, he had the #1 song of the year, Sugar Sugar. Hopefully, some of you folks know who that is. He also had another hit with a group called the Cufflings, called Tracy. He is the only artist to have two one-hit wonders reach #1. Um, Now this, I actually gave it a cartoon picture of the Archies, and it did miserable here. I am not sure why it made the changes and just didn't stick it in. This is Groovy Bear. On the cruise every year, this guy gives out these little bears to everybody, and it's called Groovy Bear. And as you can see, they misspelled it. It changed. Well, this was actually printed on the bear. It changed flower, the third letter, so that's wrong. Again, we're seeing these little hallucinations, but you're going to see Groovy Bear again throughout my talk here. Okay, machine learning. So machine learning takes AI a step further, that it enables the AI brain to learn. To train an ML system, you have to provide it lots of information what you want it to know about. For example, if you wanted to know about cats, you're going to enter information about cats, their drawings, photos, other types of cat images, historic, information about its physiology, things like that. And this is called a training data set. Then you could enter a cat photo. I could give it a cat photo and ask it to describe. This is kind of the whole concept of computer vision. Computer vision was my favorite class in my postgrad. I would really love to do stuff like that. Um, and basically, so then with this training or test data set to describe what it is, the system should be able to correctly identify the object in the photo because we have told it in great detail what a cat is, and it has learned this, what a cat looks like. Keep in mind, as you ask questions and it gains new information, it has a feedback mechanism and feeds that back to where it takes it puts it in the format it needs, adds it to the adds it to the model so that it's available over and over again. And so it's constantly learning. This one is from one of my coworkers, and I had to ask her permission to use it. She puts out, deck is a PowerPoint presentation, and she every time she puts out a deck, she puts one of her cats. This is one of her cats, and interesting enough, according to my sources, is her cats all have the name of alcohol, like Scotch, like Professor Scotch. So I thought I'd kind of make fun of this. And I basically said Director of Muse, and I showed the logo, pink ball, Meow magazine for the discriminating cat. And of course, after a hard day of chasing mice and, you know, uh, you know, uh, chasing leaves that are rolling around, Professor Scotch comes home, lays down, grabs the catnip, has a catnip, and relaxes for the evening. So this was what I made for her. She kind of liked that. Okay, so enabling that brain again. It's a structure we follow very similar, like a neural network, um, and think of it as the structure of the system of the brain cells. It's made up of a lot of tiny parts that work together to understand and learn from the data presented to it. Just like humans, the neurons help us think, learn, connect, create memories. There are nodes that enable the AI ML systems and to make connection between items in the data and be trained. Like I said, I have a warped mind, I think, in things that inspire me. So here was a picture of the new Superman movie. This was the very first early shot they showed. I'm not going to say anything about what that is outside his window. You have to see the movie. But he was putting his boots on. And the first thing that came to mind when I saw this, for you folks that are not in the United States, the first thing that came to mind, well, it's time to make the donuts. It's early in the morning, which is the motto for Dunkin' Donuts, which is a donut shop. So I said, I'm going to have him make the donuts. Now look how he's sitting. So I basically had him take that picture, said, give it the title, Time to Make the Donuts, and have him sitting in a Dunkin' Donuts having a cup of coffee, and one donut with sprinkle and one donut with blue icing, I think I said. Um, and so that was him. Instead of holding his boots, he's holding his coffee and pondering how he's going to catch Lex Luthor. But there was one of my action figures I made.
I'm curious,
So
Michael. This might be a good point to ask this question. Someone had asked because we're talking about how AI just computation works and how it thinks or doesn't think, so to speak. But Paul Albert had asked, are there parallels between like AI systems, hallucinations, and misperceptions, and things we see in pop culture that maybe people thought up? Can this inform our understanding of how people think? So I think what the person might be asking is there any parallels between the way computers might think and people might think, and is that present in like AI outputs?
so in a couple slides, I get into that,
Okay.
in that, AI really doesn't have a conscience. It doesn't have a soul. It basically, based on what it's learned, can try to answer questions. I'm going to, at the very end, show you one that I did of Ozzy Osbourne.
Mm.
I did not have any mention of a snake in it. Okay. However, it revised my prompt and put a snake in it. And, that's the one I showed. I thought it was kind of cool, so I kept it. So obviously, somewhere in the system that was trained for OpenAI, they have associated with Ozzy Osbourne something significant related to a viper snake. So I don't know if I'm answering the question, but basically, um, there are some parallels. But again, what you think and when it goes to your imagination, it doesn't have that per se creativity.
Mm.
It's just going to, again, you ask it a question, it gives you what I refer to as a prediction. That is, this is what it thinks you want to see.
Cool. That's great. No, I think that's a good answer, and I'm excited to see, further elaboration in the later slides that you were pointing to. So thanks for that.
Okay, sure. So let's talk about examples. This is one I call Liar, Liar, Pants on Fire. And for you folks that are from Scotland, I apologize if I butcher this. So here was the prompt they use. The Glenfinnan Viaduct is a historical railway bridge in Scotland, UK. It crosses over the West Highland Line between the towns of Millag and Fort Williams. Most likely there was more to this where they asked it to draw it. The problem is this photo is very inaccurate. First off, the viaduct only goes one way. There aren't two tracks, so that's the first thing. Two, it put a second chimney up on here, and there's only one chimney on this train. And what it did with the cars, if you notice, it as it goes along, it slowly elongates them. I mean, this one's really big. So they're not all of equal size, which they typically would be. So it had some problems when it drew this. Okay. And we'll talk a little bit about why some of these problems occur. Um, okay. So this was I left the person the guilty out of this, but a famous Scotsman said ChatGPT sometimes churns out rubbish, and I thought, oh, okay, I can live with that. So ChatGPT 3 is an older version when they did this. We are on what 4.0, and then I believe there are some renditions of 5 that are out. And they asked this question: when was the Golden Gate Bridge? For those of you who don't know, the Golden Gate Bridge is in San Francisco, California, transported for the second, not the first, the second time across Egypt. And of course, because it didn't want to show you that it didn't understand. It says, "Oh, I'll just tell them this." It was transported for the second time across Egypt in October of 2016, which is not true. They haven't moved the bridge once or twice, but here you go, the Egypt's fake Golden Gate Bridge. And the problem here is it didn't know an answer, and it could have said, "I don't know," or "I'm not sure." Uh, but instead it said, let me just tell them this, see if I can get away with it. Duplicates. This is something you will see a lot. I see a lot. So someone probably said here, show an elder couple enjoying coffee in the morning. They're both happy. They're in a lightly lit room and they're mellow and all that. And so not only is he holding a coffee cup, she is holding two. Notice her weird fingers. We'll talk about that in a minute. And they have one in the air here. This is the magic coffee cup, and then all these others. This happens because of the resolution of the images that are inside of the model. If they're lower resolution images, there's more probability that it will duplicate elements in the image because they struggle to scale to a pattern. So also, if the training data is limited, if we haven't properly stated that a human, a man or woman, will hold a single coffee cup in their dominant hand, one at a time, and not have other coffee cups present. Things like that. You could give it all these instruction. Um, so with that said, if the training data is limited, if it has errors, poor quality, the model's ability to understand and reproduce content weakly develops. This underscores the importance of having, this is just like you folks that are in the Tableau community, high quality, diverse training data and maintaining consistency and resolution to minimize such issues. Okay. So here's another one. Again, I'm talking more about proportions. So for example, if I had a square image, 1024 by 1024 pixels, and I took that and I wanted to make a non-square image, this one is, even though I trimmed it, I should have left it as it is, but it really is a rectangle. Um, and it has problems when you take a square and try to show it in different formats like a rectangle. As you can see from the lady sitting here, they probably said we have a lady relaxing in her room and she's knitting and enjoying life or whatever. But what it did here is it obviously stretched her out. Her arms are very well extended. Her body is highly extended and not proportionate. And a lot of that has to do with the image it used. Okay, too many fingers. So here we show someone kneading dough, and that's fine, except they have 5 fingers. Now you could always argue because there have been cases, people have talked about people that have, extra toes, extra fingers, and things like that. But why would this occur? So one of the simple reasons is in most pictures, hands are not um, emphasized as other parts of the human body. Typically take pictures. It's usually a face or from your belly upward, and it may not know what a hand is. So, for example, if I had this as an answer, I could, remember you can keep, it's called chaining, where you can keep chaining answers on here. So you could have said things like, um, a human male or female has each has 2 hands. On each hand is a thumb and 4 fingers. The finger closest to the thumb is the index finger, which is generally used for pointing. The second finger closest to the thumb is to wish people a happy day. I'll let that one let that sink in on your own. Okay, but you can say a hand can wave and flex, hold objects, clench as a fish. You can have them stuffed in your pants pocket, partially hidden from view. So if you add that, maybe as it regenerates, it would all of a sudden have 4 fingers and thumbs. But something like that you would want to do to basically just correct that, and then it takes that information and feeds it back into the system so it keeps learning. Causes and impacts of AI hallucinations. This is basically the dumpster fire, and I'll get myself in trouble for this, but the company right now is the expert at dumpster fires, but we'll let that go. Okay, surprise. AI systems do not think. To go back to your question, Garrett, it's important to understand AI hallucinations are not machine learning errors. They're not errors. It's doing exactly what it was trained to do. It's to predict and respond. These systems don't think. They don't have a conscience. They don't have a moral code. They don't understand what a fact is, what truth is, what falsehood is. This is kind of like Congress and the Senate. But anyway, they simply make a prediction about what the user wants in a response based on the questions asked, and then the system provides that information. So when a system returns a hallucination, it's not broken. It just did what you asked. It answered a question, and the answer it might not have any facts in it. It may be totally misstated. That's why you should always check your work. I don't in this presentation. In a future one, I will. I'll actually just discuss data. Like I took data from, let's say, Excel. I took data to uh, do some things to show why it goofs up with numbers. But I could do that hopefully in a future one if Garrett and Annabelle let me. I want to show this one. So again, my company's headquarters is in San Antonio, and the pride of San Antonio is the Alamo. Years ago, Tim Burton made a movie called Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and Pee-wee got himself a vintage bike. It's a beautiful bike, and he rode around on his vintage bike, and one of the places he rode was the Alamo. The Alamo has just built a beautiful multi-story museum that's going to be opening soon. And they were able to acquire the actual bike used in the movie that will be on display in the museum. Pee-wee unfortunately passed a few years ago, but it won't be there. But the bike will be in the museum. And I decided to do this when I read the article. Literally, I read the article and I told it without giving them pictures or anything. Show a picture of Pee Wee Herman riding his red bike from the movie, and show a picture of the Alamo, which is located in San Antonio, Texas, as the background. So again, I didn't even use any pictures on this one. I just gave it enough information where it knew what they were. And please, AI is not a search engine. Do not say, "Oh, I use the AI search engine." AI is not a search engine. It's not Google search or Bing. And there's some important differences. Search engines return answers typically with a link to published information that can be viewed or verified, while an AI system returns newly generated information. That is information put together in a way that it hasn't done before, kind of like every snowflake is different, every answer is different, that the user may verify independently, but it doesn't guarantee facts. Here was one of my errors I made that actually turned out to be something cool. I took this picture in the background and I fed it in here, and what I wanted it to do is show the Fortress of Solitude and Superman in front in his, red, white, and blue suit. And instead, it generated this. And I thought it was kind of cool. It made like an icy Superman and parts of Fortress Solid. This is from the new movie, folks. Now, I'm part of a Facebook group of people that are Superman nerds, and I'm actually in several of them. I need to get a life, I guess. But the asset did here was the old one of Superman, and people were losing their mind. I mean, 50 to 100 probably people said it's the wrong logo. So I basically got a picture of the current Superman logo, said replace the logo on Superman's chest with the one in the photo. And it did that. So they're happy. And then it goes back on the argument, who's the best Superman in history? And they all go back and forth about this stuff. These guys need to get lives, I guess. I don't know. Um, Now, why do hallucinations happen? So let's start talking about this. Overfitting. So, in other words, an AI system is limited to the information it has. Okay, so for example, if I trained a system to know all about cats, the species of cats, their colors, their habits, how much they typically weigh, things like that, and it'd be like reading a book all about cats, and all of a sudden I give you an exam about dogs, and it says, I don't know, maybe a dog has a tail and plays with catnip, and it's just going to make something up. Bias data, and this is a real problem right now, is information can be used to train the system that is imbalanced or unfair. The system might create predictions on that. To show a more innocent example, I could only train it about weather conditions in Antarctica, when it snows, how much snow, what the temperatures are per day or week, and all that. And then all of a sudden I ask it a question about the tropics, it possibly would return an answer to me saying, oh, the tropics have snow every other month and this and that, and it'd be probably wrong and probably funny. But again, we never told it about, weather except that for the Arctic. This is kind of a sentimental one for me. I used to have Weimaraners for many, many years, and Gracie was the one I had the longest. She was my dog for 17 years. And she would anything she'd catch, and Arizona we have lizards and other things. She would catch them, and she'd whimper until I sat down so she could put it in my lap. So I had, Gracie, if it moves, she'll catch it. And of course, this is an Alien for you folks that have not or have seen the movie Alien. And I had in here Alien version. And basically, when I did this, it gave me that whole message. This is not acceptable content, not acceptable content for what you're trying to make. I could recommend, we do this instead or that instead. And so I changed it to just good catch. And once I took out the word alien, it was okay with this. But otherwise, it stopped generating it midway through. So this would be Gracie catching an alien. Okay, why do they happen? Again, a system is trained and it may contain negative social stereotypes about people or professions, systems used to make systems, loans for a car that would cause financial harm. Again, I work in the financial services industry. We want to make sure the information we use to do loans or to do safety checks on cars is accurate from reliable sources like let's say the various automobile associations and such, or if it's medical diagnostic equipment, you want to make sure they understand the limits and the types of numbers you'd be looking for. You don't want, none of us want to be on the operating table about to get open heart surgery. Hey, good news. We're having AI do your open heart surgery today. I don't think I would be up for that. Again, here's Groovy Bear again. What I did is I took the Flower Power logo and I took a picture of Groovy Bear and I just told it underneath the Flower Power logo, create a new logo using Groovy Bear dancing and playing and having a whole bunch of Groovy Bears having fun. And that's exactly what it did. Okay. Okay. Now I'm going to get a little more ominous, but there are dangers in using AI system. And I deliberately used a more soft one. So you could ask AI, what's happening in Phoenix on Saturday night? And the system will guess. It'll look through calendars or whatever it has, through the internet or whatever it's saved off on the data set, and it may tell you, there's great events happening Saturday night at town hall, and this person tells the one person, another person tells another. They're passing notes. They all show up. There's nothing happening there. I collect coins, and there's a show the third weekend of every month, and there's another show, a tinier show, I think the second weekend of every month. But I can type in, and I usually do this probably around, like today would be a day I do that. What coin shows are in town this weekend? And it'll tell me, hey, all these coin shows are in town this weekend. So this weekend is going to be the 9th. It'll say coin shows in town this weekend are this on Saturday, August 23rd. So in other words, it's telling me a coin show's in town. It tells me the right date, but it didn't seem to understand the relationship between today and this weekend being the 9th and not the 16th, 23rd, or 30th. This is another one I made for you folks that like Star Wars or Andor. This is K2SO. I said, give me an army of K2SOs. Have it say AI army. Underneath, I wanted the rebellion have begin. Humans be warned. And when it generated this, it left off the humans be warned. Now, I wonder if it did that because it didn't have the room, and it did have the room, or it did that because it says, this is inappropriate, and I'm just going to leave it off and not tell them. Okay? So, detecting and mitigating AI hallucinations. In general, I've been kind of, speaking negatively about AI and ML, but for the most part, it's very good and getting better every day. The more a system gets trained and learns, this isn't true, this is true, the better it'll be over time. Companies that bring in this technology need to understand how the system works, how to maintain it. Here's an example. Again, my wife and I, a few weeks ago, saw the Happy Together tour, 60s, 70s bands. This is Jay and Americans. We know Darren here. And Darren asked me to make one of the band. And it showed Big Darren, Little Darren, and his other Jay, and of course the other guy. And I had to say, okay, take out the smaller figures near the bottom of the card, and only leave the three figures, the other three remaining figures. And it did that. I thought it was interesting. It made the card a lighter color. One of the problems, and I call this the Toontown syndrome, is the more you regenerate action figures, the more they start looking like Toontown characters. And what I mean by that is if you keep doing it enough, they'll get cartoonish faces. I did something internally, work showing something like this, where I basically took my boss and Grok. Gronkowski played for the Patriots and in Tampa Bay. He's a spokesman for our company. And the more times I generated it, they started looking like they lived in Toontown. And so I had to reverse some of my tricks. So that's just my theory, but that it does. I call it the Toontown effect. Okay, so how do we mitigate this? So say almost the same thing we say in the Tableau community. Clean your data, get rid of inaccuracies, make sure fields are complete. If it doesn't have a value, put something in there to indicate that it doesn't. Train it better. As you're training it, keep checking things. Ask, really outside the box type of questions. Regularly check it. Just because your system's up and running doesn't mean it's good. Prepare different checks every time, so you can make sure what it doesn't seem to know, you can give it more information. Be transparent. Unfortunately, you're not going to see this in the AI community. And what I mean by that is if Gronk has an error or Apple has an error, they're not going to tell everybody in the world, oh, yeah, we found an error or a mistake. They're going to kind of hold that close to their chest, which is unfortunate because they should let the rest of the communities know so that they can make those kind of fixes and errors. But again, I'm speculating here, is this will always be able to say, well, our AI system will answer that correctly where theirs doesn't. Okay. Here's another one I did. A lot of them so like I told you, the people in the Flower Power group that were on the cruise asked me for lots of stuff. Only thing here that existed was this picture. For you folks that don't know, this is probably one of my favorite movies, called The Shawshank Redemption. And this is the very famous scene when Dufresne has escaped and they're looking in the hole that he had made. And so I told it use this text for the header, this text here. But then I told it, you show completely in the background, Shawshank Prison, which is located in Maine. And it knew how to find that. I gave it enough of a description that it could find that in the data that it had. So I didn't include anything there. Okay, Workday. Oh, AI got bad. I want to credit one of my coworkers, Adrian. She says, why don't you mention this in there? So currently there's a class action suit against Workday saying that they have trained their AI system to discriminate against applications on age, race, disability. I have a friend that very, very well qualified had lost their job, and they applied to a company Friday afternoon and filled out the resume and all that. And like about 10 o'clock that night, they received the message, we have reviewed your resume, and although you have great qualifications, we are going to someone else. I don't believe an AI person on a Friday night was sitting there going through resumes. I think the system kicked them out for one thing or another. For example, if I were to apply for a job, um, and one of the things they ask, you say, well, we don't discriminate. Well, if you ask me what year I graduated from college, you just basically ask me my age. Because I graduated from my undergrad in 85. And if you do the math, it's pretty easy to figure out the range of where my age is. And so anybody who asks that is already telling me uh, that. One of the interesting things that would be to do is take the entire job description, feed it into AI, and say, make me a resume, and submit that as the resume. I mean, how could they turn you down if you're basically giving them a resume of everything they're looking for, even if you don't have those skills? But basically, the lawsuit claims they unfairly ranked and filtered candidates out. The case is proceeding, collective action. There's their logo. Last night, I was sitting here in front of my computer and I was thinking, how would I show the way that the HR person is going through resumes? And I thought of one of my favorite characters, Stripe from Gremlins. And I said, using Stripe from the movie Gremlins, have him standing in a pile of scattered resumes, ripping them up, shredding them, and being very gleeful about it. And this is what it created. And this was using Copilot. Microsoft Copilot. So I thought that was kind of fun. Okay. I'm not going to drain this slide. I'm just going to, these are some things you should do for AI responsibility. Ensure fairness, avoid bias, make sure the people, the people you work with, and I hate to say it, some of the people we work with have very different opinions, and some of them have strong opinions, which may or may not be right. So you want to make sure whoever works on it will be fair. Maintain transparency and explainability, even if it's just internally. Let people know we know this mistake. It will drop this person from getting a loan because of X. Prioritize privacy, data security, HIPAA for medical, PCI for credit cards, PII for everybody. Promote human oversight. Again, make sure people are doing UAT and other types of testing. Foster accountability and ethical considerations. You don't want someone to say, I'm depressed, what should I do? And it says, well, I can tell you, there are 6 gun stores in your neighborhood. You don't want it to do that. And I know I'm making fun of a very serious topic, but you don't want that kind of thing to happen. Okay? This is kind of a fun one. I was actually going to do this as an exercise. I have a Polaroid picture of me in kindergarten. This was in kindergarten around Thanksgiving, and we all made little outfits dressed as Indians, and we made these out of paper shopping bags and an old a drum out of old Quaker Oats can. This is me. And some of my other classmates. I want to say this because I grew up in a big city, okay, 5th largest city at that point in time, and 95%, I would say, of my kindergarten class were all still friends years later. We talk, we visit, things like that. Every time I have one that lives in San Antonio. Every time I go to San Antonio, I visit her and we chat and things like that. There are a couple errors. There were lots of errors here. One, these are the only 2 in the bubble. The rest of them aren't. First time I generated it, it put another girl here. I said, remove the girl from the middle. So what it did is it took all the girls out and put all boys. Another one, I said, no, there are 3 girls standing up, 2 boys sitting down, and then it added about 6 more people to it. And after a while, it finally got this one. I said, this is close enough. I'll show this. But I had went through like 10 iterations where it had a real problem. And I had told it, show McKinney Elementary School in Detroit on a snowy day. And so it picked this up itself. But all of it, and it had us all in there. But again, because probably the resolution on a black and white old Polaroid is probably very low compared to pictures of today. Okay, as I mentioned before, Ozzy Osbourne passed away a few weeks ago. Again, I did not have any reference to the Viper in this, but this is what when it generated this, you can say, "Show me the complete AI prompt code that was generated." This was the code it generated, and I wanted it to be an album cover. It's not. Ozzy's sitting on a vintage train. I said he is riding off a cover into a viper's face. I'm not sure where it got the viper. I would assume if I were to look up Ozzy Osbourne and Viper, he's done something with vipers in his shows or something. I titled it like I wanted to. I told it to use green grass, farmland, have his mouth wide open, yelling something, and eyes open wide. So it did that. So with that said, that is my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you found this a little fun. And if you want, I will answer any questions as best I can. Like AI, I may lie, give you misinformation or make fun of it.
Yes, different considerations with human responses as well. We'll kind of go down the list here. There was someone had asked kind of towards the beginning of the presentation that said, when you create people or edit videos using AI, can you tell the difference? Sometimes when people edit faces, you cannot tell, and this can be a security issue. This seems to be more like the editing. Obviously, I feel like in the creation standpoint, you can usually tell from the outset of creation when someone has generated through AI or if they made it themselves. But on the editing standpoint, do you have any thoughts or anything on how people are using AI to edit things, whether it's created by a human or another AI engine?
So let me just go back to the guys from here. When you make an action figure, you obviously would be more three-dimensional. And even here, I can tell this is obviously not him in a photo. Now you get to something where we'll go all the way back where I used chat on, and here's Annabelle and here's Garrett with a beard. This one would be harder, I think, to tell it was made. But then again, a lot of us have seen movies and shows where there's a backdrop behind them. It's like the weather station. It's just a blank wall, and then they display it behind them. I kind of can feel that this is not real just by looking at the background. But again, there's probably other tools. Right hand, someone's telling me. Yeah, right here, the fingers. Their fingers are all meshed together. So that's a good example right there. Thank you, Monica. But and in this case, the mirrors are facing down. I just noticed. So it's there's things that you can tell. There are probably better tools. I know there's tools like Leonardo, Claude, and other ones that may be able to do this better, that make it even harder to tell. I just saw both Superman and the Fantastic Four movie the last couple of weeks, and it's pretty amazing how much of that is really not there. It's really the actor probably and wires and stuff, and they added things in. But yeah, I don't know if that answers your question or not, but I think right now we can tell. Maybe a year or two from now, it'll be a lot more difficult.
Mike, I have a question. I mean, it's not me, it's from Brian Roach, but I think it's a very interesting question, maybe a little bit about semantic. Is there a difference between hallucination or simply the wrong answer?
Between what's the first word?
AI hallucination. My French accent is killing me.
Oh, hallucination.
And the wrong answer. Yeah.
So the industry term everybody has used is hallucination. And, again, as the definition I gave is hallucination is it's stating things that are not factual or just made up. So to their point, there's probably, giving a wrong answer, making things up, would be mistakes, would be the wrong answer. I guess there's a thin line there of what you're trying to say. I mean, I understand now. When I first started using AI, I'd throw my phone on the ground saying, ChatGPT is so dumb, and it really wasn't. It just, OpenAI, whoever's maintaining their models, and they have different models too, but I use the standard model. But it's just like we used to say early in my career: garbage in, garbage out. What you fed it and the amount of detail it knows is what you're going to get back.
You got time for one or two more?
I got more. That's fine.
Okay. I've got one from Hongwei Liu here that says they had mentioned they use AI regularly. In fact, they're encouraged to use AI regularly, but obviously they understand there's challenges with accurate information. But from your experience, are there any resources, data sources, websites, any trustworthy information that, generally speaking, it's safe to train your data on? Or are there tools? Well, I know sometimes are there tools that maybe produce more reliable results? I think it's probably use case based because, whenever you're looking for trusted data, that's so dependent on what industry you're in or what you're asking. That can really range. But have there just been any broad resources or broad tools that you're like, generally speaking, these are kind of trustworthy, or even just help you get more info, help you be better at AI?
I have a friend who actually maintains a image that basically shows media and news and data sources to where they are either to the far right, far left, up and down, less accurate, highly accurate. And I'm forgetting the name right now. Otherwise, I'd bring it up. I'll include that in there.
Great.
But the one she has near the top would probably be the ones I would probably try to, basically your model crawls through these on the internet and grabs that. I'd probably start with those. I'm not going to name any names. There are some that to get away from being called basically not telling the truth, they say, well, we're just entertainment shows, and they feel that gives them leverage to say whatever they want. Where other ones are a little more not stuffy, stoic is the word I'm thinking of. That would do that. Like I think The Economist is ranked real high in their opinions of things and how they view politics worldwide and everything. So I believe they're one of the top tier ones. So might be one I would go to. I mean, right now, I think any data source we look at, we really have to look at it with a kind of a, give it the stink eye and say, how much of this is true? A lot of times, if I'm interested in something, I'll read several different articles on it, and it'll be amazing. One article will mention a little tidbit about something that's very interesting. The other one won't. But a lot of times they'll say things, and the way they've worded the paragraph, it takes it totally out of context, and that's not right or left, up or down. It's just in general. I know you guys are familiar with Alberto Cairo. I've taken many classes from him, and he'd be the person that says, you have to tell the truth, even if you don't like it. He told me once, and I've always followed this, even though I've wanted to go back and delete stuff. He told me people should not be allowed to delete anything from a blog they've posted. And he says, if you said it, you meant it when you said it. Okay. And just because all of a sudden it's become out of favor, it's considered now crass or whatever, you can't delete it because that is what you felt at that point in time. And I kind of feel the same way. Is if you said it and you put it pen to paper or words or a blog, leave it.
Mm-hmm. Another question, it's kind of this touches on it, and we don't have to get we don't have to get too in the weeds if you don't want to, because it can be potentially be a politically tinged thing. But Adam Russell has said he arrived late and missed the slide on bias data, but he's curious if you have any thoughts on you mentioned the president's preventing woke AI executive order and how we should expect it to permeate AI systems. But I would even say that broader. Obviously, now you have governments, entities, different countries have different initiatives and priorities based on usage of AI and how they're either encouraging or regulating or not regulating all of these types of things. But from that level, maybe from a macro level, how do you think political spheres or just the overall climate or governmental climate overall is going to impact how we use AI in the future, for better or for worse?
That is a tough topic, and I do
Yes, it
have real
is.
strong opinions on this. Um, but I think we need to be vigilant. Um, in a life a long time ago, I I went to law school for a year. That's a whole other story. But I remember in my agency class, I had a difficult time. We did a case. With this back in the buggy days. There was a guy who had a horse-drawn wagon, and there was a guy who had an automobile, and the guy in the automobile hit the guy on the wagon, and because of some technicalities, they were found not guilty. And we had to stand up. You do that whole Socratic method thing, and um, I stood up and I said, "Well, I think this," and my teacher, he asked me to stay after class. He goes, "Mr. Sandberg, if you want to be a lawyer, the thing is you need to learn is it only goes by the facts. What are the facts of the case? What are the rules of law? Doesn't matter your opinion. Doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. If the person who truly did wrong wins the case, that's what you have to go by." And I struggled with that, and then I realized, law wasn't for me. So here I am doing Tableau. But yeah, it's kind of along those lines, is that basically we have to be more vigilant. And you also, the other thing you said, I'm sorry, I left off the key piece. He said, whenever someone says something to you, makes a statement, and it's incorrect, you need to correct them right then. He says, don't wait a week, don't wait a year, you know. There was that whole thing, and I'll use this example. This doesn't mean anything about my politics, but in analysis, there was the whole Swift boat controversy with, I think, with John Kerry ran for president, where some members that were with him out in war made comments about how he wasn't as valiant and brave as he said he was. Instead of ignoring the question, for a week before he finally responded, he should have responded immediately, and he had people who could verify what he said. And it's like this: when someone does something like this, you have to respond immediately. If you notice in the news, when a lot of things are coming out, people are responding almost immediately to make sure that whatever was said, that they have provided at least a second, I don't want to call it a second set of facts, a second opinion on what may be true and may not be true.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, last one. This one's a little more fun, and it relates to Tableau, and it's a good one to close off with, because I think it'll probably be relevant to a lot of people here in terms of how they're using it for their specific jobs if they are Tableau users. But it was essentially, Hongwei again was asking, are there any powerful AI tools or even features that just enhance Tableau's capabilities? I would even broaden this to just say, if you're an analyst, if you work in data in any capacity, are there any things that you have found like, hey, this is actually really helpful?
So full disclosure, we are currently at version 2023.1 and about to migrate to 2025.1. Now, I own my own personal version of Tableau, separate from work, bought it myself, and I can do a lot of this stuff at home. I need to sit because now that we're going to migrate at work to try some of these features. Again, pardon me, and if there are any Tableau salespeople on the call, but Tableau has moved away. For example, 2 years ago when I spoke at Tableau, you didn't see a snowflake presence there, and a lot of that has to do with Tableau is encouraging people to use the Salesforce server, which, by the way, is the only place you can see the agents and what is it, Pulse, or all those other features are only available there. We are still on a Tableau server, plan to stay on a Tableau server for reasons I cannot discuss, but so those features won't be available. There are other alternatives they're looking at to do these kind of things. So I guess from a Tableau perspective, you have to be willing to work with Salesforce server and the various AI tools related to that if you are going to be a pure Tableau type of environment. And if I'm wrong, if anybody's Tableauish on here, if I'm wrong in what I'm stating, please let me know, or please, post it here. I'm okay being wrong. I'd rather be corrected and saying the right thing than not. But that my understanding is to use some of these more advanced AI tools, you need to have Salesforce server.
Well, great. I think that answers everything. This is really insightful. Honestly, there are a lot of things here that were really useful for me personally, and I hope they were useful for our audience and commentators. But I want to thank you for sharing that knowledge, Mike. It's really great to have people with long institutional knowledge as well as the immediate knowledge you've gathered from your recent program at UT, which is really kind of the cutting edge of all this stuff. So
sure,
yeah, thank you.
And like I said, I'd be willing, maybe 6 months down the road or so, I could do one where we strictly work with data and show how the issues with data and hallucinations.
Yeah, I'd love that. Let's do it.
Well, thank you, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today, your patience with me and your patience with any opinions I have. But and Annabelle and Garrett, of course, thank you. You guys have been real patient waiting for me to do this, and you've been wonderful hosts.
It was the right time. Yes. So we are happy to catch you on the right time, and it was a fantastic presentation. So thank you very much to you.
Sure.
Great. And just a reminder to everyone tuning in that this will be emailed out. The presentation will be emailed out. Any other resources, feel free. And Mike, just as a parting word, if anyone wants to know more or connect with you, what's the best way to do with that after this?
Did I put my... Here he says...
I think that you had your LinkedIn or...
Yeah, my email, my personal email's on there. Michelangeles@cox.net. And for you folks that wonder what Michael Angeles is, when I was growing up, my next door neighbors, who are our best friends, as a little boy, their father used to call me Michelangelo. And so that's what Michelangelo would probably be a harder one to get as my own name. So I did that. It just kind of was a childhood nickname he had given me.
That's fun. That's great. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'm sure we will talk to you soon. We will definitely take you up on that offer, but thank you for taking the time.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mike.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.